Hi, Peggy.
Morning, evening.
Evening.
All right, Sheila, can you hear us?
I can.
All right,
Oh,
perfect. The time is now 7:07 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order. May we have roll call, please?
Mayor Reichel,
Here.
Pro Tem Hanrahan,
Here.
Trustee Britnall, Trustee Klassen,
Here.
Trustee Flores, Trustee Poston,
here.
Trustee Seifert.
Here.
All right, may we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, be seated. All right, the first item on tonight's agenda is public comments. Persons desiring to make public comments on items not on the agenda, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, did we have any phone calls or emails in regards to non-agenda items?
No, I did not hear from anyone today, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And I don't see any raised hands. Amy is not with us
Our
tonight.
raised hand person
I
tonight?
did not see any as well.
Okay, all right.
Nobody signed in.
And we have nobody signed in the chambers. You guys are both here for agenda
Both
items, correct?
presented,
Okay,
yep.
Not on an agenda item.
all right, sounds good. Well then, moving right along, we will jump right into the shop local video of Wild Roots.
So while Sheila's queuing that up, remember this is part of our Shop Local program with Align Multimedia, and they're featuring a variety of different town businesses. This is the second in the series.
Can everyone see that?
Yes. Yes.
We don't
Just
have
no
any-
sound.
No sound.
Yeah, we can see what's going on.
Are you not getting sound?
Yeah,
No sound.
no sound.
Michael, is that something you can assist with?
You have sound coming out of your system.
I do.
So you can hear it.
Mhm.
Technology, it's a wonderful thing.
It's a good thing to have technologists on the other end
On
trying
the
to
other-
figure it
Trying to
out.
figure it out for us, yeah.
I was thinking the same thing. This video and the one that we produced for Whimsical Wag are both on our website, so you can, are linked to our website. So you can go on and see them there.
The Discover Silt website.
And there's a link from our website too, but then, yeah, Discover Silt website at discoversilt.org.
I think it's discoversiltcolorado.com,
Thank you.
and it's on the shop local page. Rather, they both are.
Let's say that one more time. Discover Silt.
Colorado.com
.com.
/shop-local.
Right. Thank you.
I don't know why I remember that.
I don't remember the dash. So we could probably just tell people where to find that and move on, Mr. Mayor, if you,
Sounds like a plan. I guess if we could figure it out, we'll maybe go back to it at the end of the meeting. So,
do that.
all right, easy enough. Did you hear, Sheila? We're going to go ahead and move on to the consent agenda, and we'll come back to that at the end of the meeting if we have.
Oh, okay. Michael is gonna we're gonna send it to his laptop so he could try to show it, but we can move on and then show it later, maybe.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay,
All right.
so sorry.
That's okay. So we will go ahead and move on to the consent agenda, which contains the draft minutes of the September 11th, 2023 Board of Trustees meeting, the high Q renewal of retail marijuana license, and an engagement letter with Kutak Rock LLP as bond counsel for financing the water treatment plant improvements. Would anybody like to separate any of those out or have any questions or comments on that? Or would like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by trustee Seifert to approve the consent agenda as presented. That was seconded by trustee Clausen. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Do any board members have any conflicts of interest with any agenda items tonight?
No, sir.
Okay, I have none either. Do we have any agenda changes by staff or by the board?
No, sir.
All right. I guess the only one would be maybe at the administrator and staff comments, we try and play the Wild Roots video. If we've got an email, we could try it again, so.
And we may or may not use the executive session that's in, it's been included in the agenda.
Okay. All right. Next up on the agenda then is the 2023 Heyday Report with Peggy Swank. So come up to the table and let's hear what Heydays did this year.
Thank you. I am Peggy Swank. I live on Lone Pinion, just north of Silt and Silt Mesa. And I wanted to give you an update on Silt Heydays. We think it's probably the best one we've had since we moved back to Veterans Park. We had a gorgeous day to work all day. And it was our 53rd anniversary of Silt Heyday. And little did the organizers know in 1969 that we would still be able to continue this event. It's changed through the years, but it's still continuing to draw Silt residents and families. Despite the lightning and rain on Friday evening, we had a wonderful day at the park to celebrate with the historical park on their 40th anniversary. This year we moved the food vendors onto 5th Street, which you closed for us during the event. We missed our Colorado River Fire Rescue Touch a Truck program because most of those firefighters were off fighting fires during the day. So we did miss out on that, which is something that we enjoy having as part of it. We appreciate all the help that the Town of Silt and the Board of Trustees provides. The support is really visible from the cleanup and setup on Thursday and Friday and again on Monday. Having Sheila, Chris, and Justin on the committee over the past few years has been an asset. But we also have the support of the office staff, the planning and development staff in preparing early for Silt Heyday, and I cannot forget the police presence in the park on Saturday. The second pavilion in the park was a nice addition, as was the closing of Grand Avenue between 4th and 6th Streets so that the kids could move easily to the playground area of the old community center block. Our financial support was better than expected this year, with you co-sponsoring us and three or more gold sponsors this year, which has been the first year that we've had that many. The breakfast by the historical park with the Colorado Curries was well received. We appreciated having a young man by the name of Gage Donaldson, a local 10-year-old, sing our national anthem while the Silt Police Department raised the flag in the Veterans Park. Our booth count was up again this year, but still less than we used to see in the 2000 era, early 2000s. The parade had 20-plus entries, which is the biggest amount that we've had since we've moved back to this park, led by the Garfield County Sheriff Patrol Honor Guard. Our parade marshals were the Silt Historical Society with their president, Andrea Brogan, on the parade float. Our parade prize winners were in first place the Silt Historical Society, in second place the Garfield County 4-H, and in third place Culver's from Rifle. They had a neat little float. Kids games and our face painter, which we had for 3 hours, organized by our team Robin Robinson and Tila Forehand and assisted by Liz Price under a smaller tent in the park, continued until later in the afternoon. Cornhole, sponsored by the Rifle Recreation Department, and the Horseshoe Tournament were again well received, and a large part of their proceeds are donated to the Silt Historical Park. These contests are organized by Justin Brento on your board. This year, the Silt All-Stars lost the vintage baseball game to the Colorado Territorial All-Stars, and those groups come in just as voluntary. We originally, in the years that we started, we had to pay them to come over, and now they just love to come over and play with our Silt All-Stars. Gift items provided in lieu of financial support were used for game prices as well as for our silent auction in the park. All the proceeds of the silent auction, and that was over $1,000, were being given to the Silt Historical Park. The afternoon band, Feeding Giants, were enjoyed by all who stayed during the heat of the day. Our evening band, Louie and the Lizards, finished our events for the day and seemed well reserved. I am sure that both groups appreciated the sound system's precise decibels, which is a local business, that we were able to afford due to the generous sponsors that we have. We are still in the process of finalizing our books for this year and know that we still may have an outstanding bill or two. Each year, we try to finish closing our books with sufficient funding to move forward in the following year and make financial commitments early in the heyday schedule before all current funding comes to us. This year, our sponsors were quite generous, and at our last team meeting, we discussed how to utilize some of the funding that we currently have received. In previous years, we have helped support the Silt Historical Society and still do by redirecting funds for the events back to them. This year, the funding was sufficient that we are looking for other ways to utilize these funds. Some of the ideas that our team came up with was to find some way to give back to the community, to help with providing some seed funding to the town so that the gazebo might be replaced with some type of a band shell that is better suited to the types of bands that are now performing. To provide funding to assist in additional electrical power in the park, to provide a donation to Garfield County for additional hydraulic jacks for the stage that we have been borrowing. There's never been a charge to use it. For a while it belonged to the town of Silt, but in any instance, even when it has belonged to Garfield County, we've never had a charge for using the stage. Possibly create a heyday scholarship, and that's not well thought out yet. We don't know how we would make that happen, but that was one of the options that we came up with. And possibly hire a larger name band for the evening performance. And then the last one was provide a larger donation to the Silt Historical Park. And we'd like you guys to think a little bit about some of these ideas, especially with the ones in which we talked about doing some funding back to you guys, because you've been so supportive for us for the last few years. Our volunteers on our committee are Justin Brintle, Michael Clark, Chris Clausen, Greg Kolosinski, Tila Forehand, Sheila McIntyre, Joan Nestor, Kim Price, Sydney Reynolds, Robin Robinson, Hope Stewart, myself, and Carly Webb, and our extended families. And I hope you guys enjoyed Heyday as much as we did, because we really enjoyed it. It's fun being back in Veterans Park. Any comments, questions?
No, I'd like to thank Peggy Swank for doing this all these years, and this was her 29th season of Heyday.
It's been fun. It's changed a lot, but it's been fun. You know, and please do think about those ideas, because I know that there is an interest in the community to keep the gazebo as it is, and for storage, it functions beautifully for us. For bands, the shape is just not conducive to a lot of the bands that we have coming in to play for Heyday, and so something different might be a little more beneficial. So think about that. Think also about the fact that, you know, maybe we can provide some seed funding. We wouldn't be able to pay for it all, but maybe we can provide some seed funding for electrical. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any questions?
You mentioned there were 3 gold sponsors. Do you want to acknowledge them individually?
There were at least 3 gold sponsors, but Valley View Hospital, the Silt Clinic was one of those. Down Valley Septic is another one of those. And Waste Management is another one of those. Plus, your own waste provider provided us with a lot of extra resources, and the town of Silt is one of those gold sponsors for us, too. Okay?
Thanks to all.
All right, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Peggy.
See you next year.
I hope so. I hope I'm still moving around next year.
Mr. Mayor, we do have that video ready to queue up again if we want to go ahead and try that.
Yeah, let's give it a quick shot. It's just a couple minutes long, so let's see.
Hey everyone, I'm Ashley Taylor, owner of Wild Roots Boutique here in Silt, Colorado. We are open Tuesday through Saturday, and we're located here at 702 Main Street. I opened up back in 2018 and then just recently rebranded in 2021 to bring you Wild Roots Boutique. Coming from a small little town here in Silt, I wanted to offer affordable, trendy clothing for everyday use. So anything from just like a cute little floral blouse like this to also the camo, because let's be honest, that's what Silt and Colorado is all about. So I grew up in this valley. I grew up in Newcastle, traveled around, and then I came back to Silt, Colorado, and I shopped online a lot. So I was buying items just like this online. So I figured, why not start a boutique here in Silt and keep it local? And this community is just so amazing, and I love being involved with it. We do so many fundraisers, events here, and I couldn't ask for a better town to open up in. I think shopping local is very, very important, because I do things that those big branch stores would never do. I do giveaways and discounts. I offer events here. We just put together an amazing race last weekend, and that was so much fun. So shopping local is very, very important. You're supporting small businesses and small families like me. If you're passing through Silt, stop on by. I would love to see you. I've got brands like Judy Blue, Blowfish, Mono Bee, and we can put an outfit together for you.
Yeah,
All right.
very nice.
Yeah, good video. The lines put some nice stuff together, so looks good.
And those are, just to add to that, Mr. Mayor, that's representative of exactly the types of businesses we'd love to see more of here.
For sure. Okay, next up is the Youth Zone Annual Presentation and Request for Support by Ollie, and I'm not even gonna try the last name.
Yeah, you don't need to. It's
Okay,
fine.
all right.
I'm just gonna hand these out and then I'll take my seat.
Okay.
It's just a one-page, it's got all the same information that I'm gonna present to you. It's just a digestible form for you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You go ahead and hold on to it. I just want to hear the presentation.
So I pronounce my last name Nase Shahri, but I don't expect you to do that. Thanks for having me here. It was fun to hear about Heyday, and it was cool to see local businesses. I don't get to spend much time in Silt, so I like hearing those kind of things. Just to get an idea, how many of you, maybe thumbs up, you know everything about Youth Zone, thumb in the middle, you're somewhat familiar, and thumbs down is maybe you need me to give you a lot of detail today. Okay.
Somewhat familiar.
Some mediums, and okay, great. So Sheila, if you don't mind going to the next slide. So our primary service that we provide is comprehensive assessment, and then based on the results of our assessment, we offer advocacy for youth in our communities with the goal of creating strong relationships between those youth, their families, and the communities, with the end goal being kids that have hope, families that are really strong, and communities that are safe. And some of the values that we like to live by are integrity and no judgment, inclusivity, restoration, and encouragement. So the ultimate goal here is to intervene with kids that are exhibiting risky, disruptive, or criminal juvenile behaviors. So most of the kids we work with, they end up in court at some point, and the goal is to try and prevent that or prohibit that. Really, like I said, we're trying to reduce their risk. We're trying to create healthy families. We're supporting their mental health. We're trying to intervene with their substance use, sometimes trying to prevent it, but a lot of times just trying to educate them around them and provide counseling as they're using. And then fostering restorative processes. That's sometimes a victim-offender dialogue, things like that. And so we don't have an office in Silt, but we do serve people all the way from Aspen to Parachute. So Rifle is the next closest office that we have, and that's one of our main offices in addition to the Glenwood Springs office. So we're really trying to focus on minimizing the transportation barriers so that we can provide services to people regardless of where they are in our community. So the majority of Silt residents, they end up going to Rifle, but some of them do end up coming to Glenwood Springs. And so we base our success on our screening for positive youth development. So we're measuring basically based on a survey that they take when they arrive with us. And then 3 to 6 months later, we administer the same survey to see if they've made any growth in their substance use, their alcohol use, their optimism and problem solving, their community engagement, and trauma levels. And so that's really what we're basing our work off of. Are we seeing the needle move in those areas? And this is just a list of some of the services that we provide. The assessment is the main service that then kind of unlocks all of these different services. And depending on the risk level of the youth and the different needs that they have, they might receive certain services over others. And we're also offering some parent support, and we're growing that program, really focusing on wraparound services that we can provide not only to the youth, but then to the family that supports them so that we can build strong families. And so I want to say thank you to the board for supporting us in the past. We applied for $4,000 of support last year and received that in March. And that's been a really big help. Each time a client comes to us, they do have to pay a $150 fee. And so once they pay that $150 fee, we don't require any, they don't incur a cost past that point. And so we typically provide about $2,000 worth of services once they've initiated with us. So the $4,000 that the board provided us last year has gone towards offsetting the cost, that $150 for residents of Silt that come work with us. So you can see it a couple different ways. It's supported a handful, almost all of the Silt residents, or it's paid fully for the services of 2 of the clients that we've worked with. Overall last year, oh, sorry, Sheila, if you don't mind going back. Overall last year, we served 397 unique clients, and that's all the way from Aspen to Parachute. And we provided that assessment 488 times. So there's a lot of kids that come back multiple times. And there are some Silt clients that are like that as well. And then in addition to the kids themselves, we also served about 1,500 community members. So those are members of their family. I didn't count things like their classmates or their teachers or neighborhood community members. This is purely just family members that we have impacted with our services. And we don't see the numbers changing at all in the future. The risk level is growing, but the number of kids that we serve, we don't anticipate a change. And so I mentioned earlier, we're trying to kind of remove some barriers. One of those is cost. And so the money that we do ask for in our partnerships with town councils and governments and school districts is the goal to try to eliminate that cost for the client altogether. It's surprising how many people can't afford that $150 initial fee. So we're really focusing on trying to eliminate that cost. And then, like I mentioned, we're trying to eliminate a transportation barrier. It used to be that they would have to go all the way to Glenwood for the services. So we're trying to keep those satellite offices open in as many different municipalities as we can. We're also focusing on 24/7 interpretation services so that we can make sure that regardless of the language that these kids speak, they have access to our services. And we've heard that that's been really helpful to just have that as a baseline service. And then for our staff, we're also trying to focus on cost of living, trying to minimize housing challenges. That's been a huge challenge for every industry here. And then find ways for our staff to get good childcare so they can show up and serve the community that needs them. So I don't want to spend too much time on this, and I want to jump sort of towards what it's like for kids in Silt. But I have the one-page data document if you need it, if you'd like it for the whole organization from Parachute to Aspen. And then I also have it for Garfield County if you'd like to compare those. And then I can provide any kind of information to see if you want to make comparisons between other municipalities. But by and large, the charges that we see are the same in each community. Possession of marijuana is the top one, regardless of where you go. And each community has different demographics. So, Sheila, if you don't mind skipping ahead 2 slides, we'll get, I'll have you go back one. Yeah. So, overall, 91% of our clients don't reoffend when they're working with us. So, in the period of 3 to 6 months that they're with us, 91% of them don't reoffend again. And that's the ultimate goal, is to make sure that they're staying out of trouble. And then 88% of them complete their contracts successfully. So that just means that they've stayed in touch with their case manager. They've attended all of the court cases that they need to be attending. They've attended the classes that we've prescribed to them. And then we see about 30% of clients improve in those areas that we're measuring. And they're pretty. The results are pretty even in alcohol, delinquency, optimism, and substance use, but it is much harder to see an improvement for trauma. And we've been focusing on providing mental health services to try and move the needle a little bit more in that area. And then Sheila, I'll have you skip this one as well, and we'll go to Silt. And so this is what I'd like to focus on, and this is what I'd like to give you the biggest report on, because this is where the majority of the money that the board has given us is going. So we served 18 unique clients in Silt last year, 65% male and 35% female. That's a little bit of a gap. It tends to be a little more balanced, but it's not one of the worst ones that we've seen. There are some communities where it's a much larger split between male and female. The split between Caucasian and Latino clients is interesting, and I'm not certain what Silt's demographic makeup is, but I have a feeling it's a little more balanced than that. So those numbers are interesting to me. And again, there's usually a split in communities, but it may be a little larger. We may be over-serving Caucasian clients in Silt, just slightly. the majority of the kids that we work with come straight from court. So they've already received a ticket, they've already been charged, and they've showed up in court. And if they can complete their program with us, their charges will be dropped. The rest of the clients that we work with are coming from the schools, and they're coming from law enforcement agencies that decline a ticket and request that they work with us before they even write a ticket. And so we've been really working on trying to get that number up from the school and law enforcement agencies, because our primary goal is just keep them out of court in the first place. So that's something in Silt that we'd like to kind of double down on, and hopefully we can set up meetings with the school and law enforcement agencies here so that we can raise that number before they really get to court. And like I said, it's by and large possession of marijuana that gets these kids in trouble, gets them referred to us from the schools. We also see some harassment, some petty theft, nicotine vaping is on the rise, and then some assault and battery, but it's by and large possession of marijuana. And then as you can see here, the reoffense rate is a little bit lower than our average jurisdiction, but not significantly lower. And then the completion rate is the same as the rest of the jurisdiction. The good news here in Silt is that 44% report improvement in one of those survey areas. So much, much larger than communities on average. So that's really good news, is that even that they may be still getting in trouble, they may be still ending up in court, but 14% more than on the rest of the jurisdiction are reporting improvement in those areas that we're tracking, which is really good news. So I'd like to offer up some time for you guys to ask questions if you have any, or if there's anything that you're seeing in your community that we could be addressing in a different way. I'd love to hear that.
Does Youth Zone has its own counselors?
Yes, so we employ advocates who they provide the assessment, and then they act as the case managers. So as these kids are going to court and they're working through the judicial system, our youth advocates are there alongside them. We also employ substance specialists, so they're providing the substance use classes and counseling there. And then we contract to local providers for mental health services and counseling and therapy services. And those are primarily located in Rifle and Glenwood that we contract with them. So we do as much wraparound services as we can, and we try to keep as much of it in-house as we can.
Okay. Any connection with those bigger clinics like Mind Springs at all, or
Yeah,
you
so
research those? And is it the Aspen Hope Center?
Yes,
too?
exactly. So we have a contract with Hope Center, and they act as our crisis center. So we do.
They do the assessment.
Well, if we come in contact with a client who is suicidal or requires intensive mental health services, we'll refer them to Hope Center, and we still act as the case manager and bring together a team that can help support them.
And what happened to the cost that is incurred during that referral? And if there is admission, is that covered by Youth
Yep.
Zone? Oh,
Yep. Yeah.
okay.
So that $150 fee is the only cost that the client sees. And then we have a variety of funding sources, and Town of Silt is just one of those. But we make sure that the clients don't ever see anything more than $150 regardless of the services that we provide to them.
Are there any discount types of association contract that's negotiated with those clinics or doctors? Is that something that is even worth pursuing, or they wouldn't even consider it?
Yeah, so typically our organization can receive funding from the state in some circumstances, and then we act as an intermediary and can pay those contractors using those funds. So for the really severe mental health and some substance services that we provide, that's usually how it works.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I have no questions.
I don't have anything.
I have one. Other than financial, are there any other challenges that Youth Zone has, let's say 1 to 3 years? Talk to me organizationally about challenges you see on the horizon?
The risk level is going up. So like I said, the number of clients that we're seeing is not increasing rapidly, but the proportion of our clients that are high risk or high needs is rising. So those are kids with severe mental health issues or substance use issues, kids that are repeat offenders that are kind of constantly offending, kids who maybe have issues at home, so family issues that are really severe that impact them, homelessness, things like that. So that proportion of clients, by and large, is increasing. So that's one challenge. And then, as I mentioned in our trying to tackle barriers, it's hard to retain employees and incentivize employees to come here and work with us. And I think that's just that's the nature of the place that we live, and that's not unique to our industry. And that's why we've focused on trying to do those things to get ahead of that. And I would say those are probably the two biggest challenges, especially when they go together. Then you're posed with high-risk clients that maybe don't have the fullest team behind them. But it's not a critical issue at this point, primarily because we have lots of good partners in our communities.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
I got two questions. One is on the possession of marijuana is the highest referral reason you guys see. Do you guys keep a stat on how much of that is homegrown marijuana versus what came out of a dispensary?
I would guess, and this is just purely conjecture, I would guess that it's all coming from the dispensary. We've seen that it's in the houses, and we've had decades of experience teaching people how to use alcohol appropriately, and there's social norms around that, and I think we just haven't had the time as a society to develop that and teach people and learn as a society when it comes to marijuana. But my guess, and this might be a question for the law enforcement agencies, that I would guess that it just comes from the dispensary, and it's typically just not stored properly, or maybe there's the families just don't have a set of ideas around how it is meant to be used appropriately.
Okay.
So that's just a guess, though.
All right. And then the second one that I ask almost every year is the purpose of eliminating cost. Is there not more to someone potentially not reoffending if them or their parents are the one paying?
Yes, absolutely. So we skin in the game.
Yeah.
That's why we still ask for the $150, and we ask every time when they initiate those services. But that doesn't always mean that they can come up with it, right? And I don't think that the clients that we're working with are actively not trying to pay or manipulating it, but they really are in a financial circumstance that they can't. So about 55% of our clients are on free and reduced lunch, which is usually a pretty good indicator of what their family's able to afford.
Okay.
But yeah, that's why we still continue to ask for it. And so a lot of our partners, for example, Glenwood Municipal Court, we'll charge them the $150, but then the Glenwood Municipal Court will pay $300 as a portion of that. So just because we know that a lot of times they won't be able to pay it.
To pay it.
Yeah.
Okay. It took a few years to go through this conversation for me to get on board with if the town's investing the $4,000 or whatever we may do, that it does come back to the citizens of the Silt by those clients not reoffending.
Sure.
Which then costs the citizen to do it again.
Exactly.
So, I personally think that the people just have to pay, and then maybe when they reach their end, they get a refund back.
Yeah.
So they put the skin in the game to get to the end of the game, and then a potential refund. That's just a personal thing. But as far as the town funding use zone, I think is a good thing. So.
Yeah. and we appreciate the support that you've given us in the past. We're getting a little bit better at linking the funds exactly to the services that we're providing. And one of our big pushes this year is making sure that we know exactly which dollars are going to which services. And I think that then kind of alleviates some of the question that you brought up of whether it's, doing the purpose that it's served. And yeah, that's one of our goals this year is to be able to get better at being able to do that.
To track that, okay.
And I like the idea of reimbursement. That makes sense. We get reimbursed for the services that we provide a lot of times through the state.
Yeah.
So,
And then I guess how would tracking go potentially going forward with free and reduced lunch, since they're doing free and reduced lunch for every student?
That's a good question.
Just a data point you might want to.
So is that in every Colorado school district, or is that just Garfield?
It's at least in RE1 and RE2.
Okay. Another.
I guess it'd still be there because everyone still had to fill out the application. So we still have that data.
We also ask what kind of insurance they're on, which is another proxy. So we ask if they're on Medicaid or CHIP, or if they have private or no insurance.
Okay.
So that's another proxy, but primarily I rely on free and reduced lunch, but I hadn't thought of that. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. Any other follow-up questions? No? All right.
I have a quick one. You just made me think of it, actually. The reoffending rates that were in your presentation, that's while they're in the program?
Correct.
Do you have any data for 3-5 years after the program?
No. We, particularly because we're only focused on juveniles, right? So 12 to 18. We don't track anything past 18. It's not our scope of work. It's not our jurisdiction. And by the time they turn 18, their records are wiped anyway. So there's not a real way to track past that point. And really what we're looking to show is that by providing the extra services that we provide, that it does keep them out of trouble. And there are a lot of clients that as soon as they complete their services with us, it's right back in. And so without our services, it would be back onto the courts, back onto the law enforcement, back into the judicial system. So what we're doing instead is we're taking them. And there are a lot of kids in the community that that's the level of support that they need. And they're either going to get it from the courts and the law enforcement, or they're going to get it from us. And it might just be 3 to 6 months, and then they're off for a little bit, and then they come back. So that's the reality of some of the clients that we work with.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll be in budget season here shortly, and we'll get it at that time.
Much appreciated.
All right.
If you have questions, you can email me. You can get in contact with Jamie. She's our executive director. And thank you for having me.
All right.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Ally.
Thank you.
All right, next up is the first reading of ordinance number 6, series 2023. An ordinance of the town of Silt, Colorado, acting by and through its water and wastewater activity enterprise, authorizing one or more loans from the Colorado Water Resource and Power Development Authority to finance water treatment system and related improvements, authorizing execution of one or more loan agreements and bonds to, where am I at? In bonds to evidence the loans, and providing for payment of the bonds from the operations of the town's water and wastewater systems comprising the enterprise. And this will be a public hearing, but I will turn it over to our attorney.
Oh, thank you very much. Up here, you have a memo from Carpenter New Hanlon. My name's Lawrence Bond. I work for Carpenter New Hanlon, and Michael Sawyer was sorry he couldn't be here this evening. But first, for your approval is ordinance number 6. And you guys have done a lot of the hard lifting already before this evening. I believe it was resolutions number 23 and number 24 from several weeks ago that you approved the loan to fund the enterprise and the new construction of the water treatment plant. Tonight, we want to evidence that agreement and actually start the process of creating the debt service for the town. You know, the things that I don't have before me, and possibly there's some folks on this call like Jim Mann who have more concrete numbers. We don't actually have the full amount of the loans that we need to complete the water treatment plant from our contractor Garney and our, I guess, engineers who are drawing up the plans for this. But the ordinance itself evidences the loan. It's a little more complicated because there are two separate loans. And then the first one, which was in resolution number 23, I think, is the direct loan. That full amount of the loan is $12,834,825. But this is the loan that has a lot of the loan forgiveness, the principal forgiveness as a part of it. The principal forgiveness for that $12,834,000 loan, I'm not going to say the whole number again, is $8,645,000. So that's forgiven without any interest payments being provided through the Colorado Water Resources and Power Development Authority. So in reality, it's $4,189,000. So it's a significant funding through the state. And then there's a second loan agreement that is for the actual leveraged loan, which is, in my view, it's the bonds that you're going to have to pay back with your normal bond issuance of interest rates. The interest rate is, on average, it's going to vary. It's not known until they actually sell the bonds, but it'll be around approximately 4.5%, which is only 80% of the actual interest. The state will cover the other portion of that, the CWRPDA, the Colorado Water Resources Power Development Authority. So before you is the ordinance itself. I'm not sure if you guys want me to go through the ordinance or if you have any questions about it. We created a memo for you, which should be the first, might be what you were just reviewing there. But the first sections there in 1 and 2 are the actual rates, the actual amount that's going to be leveraged. I think a few just important points to make is these are up to these amounts. So up to $16 million for the leveraged loan and $12,834,825 for the direct loans. That's the maximum that the town is going to, if you pass this ordinance, will authorize for the indebtedness to the town. But I believe the amounts should be lower than this, but we want to make sure we authorize the right amounts for this loan. Another point is that if the amount is less, the town will simply borrow less. So we're not going to borrow up to the full amount just because you authorize the town of Silt to do so today. So if there is savings, let's say, Garney, the contractor comes through with a lower estimate, then we will have less money to borrow at the end of the day. It is a moving target, but I believe the bonds will start selling sometime in November, so we're thinking by December 1st is when the town will be funded and can truly start with the process. Those are the primary points to make about the loan and the bonds themselves. It'll be two separate agreements, as we've talked about. Both of the agreements are still in draft form, which are included in your packet today. I believe those should be finalized by the second reading in 2 weeks from, well, I believe it's October 10th because there's a holiday.
2 weeks and a day.
Yeah,
Right.
so in 15 days. And we'll have everything ready to be signed by the mayor at that point. All right.
Do you have any questions for myself or anyone else about the loan agreements or the ordinance tonight?
If we could just touch real quick on page 6, we got a red line.
Oh, yes, sorry. In speaking with our finance person from the Colorado Water Resources Power Development Authority, he thought it would be more prudent if we put a longer date range in there. So instead of 20 years, he suggested 22 or 23 years. So I just changed it this evening to say up to 23 years. And that would give the town more flexibility in paying back the loan.
Okay.
And then I guess a few other points about the loan agreements themselves. After the ordinance in your packet is another memo talking about the two separate loan agreements themselves. And you, I think you guys, or you all understand the distinction between the two loan agreements themselves. One is the direct loan, one is the leveraged loan. But the form of the agreements are fairly similar. They almost have identical language throughout. There's some distinctions based on the loans. Obviously, the terms, the amounts are different, but the requirements contained within the loan agreements are fairly similar between the two documents. And the big ones are, let's see if I can kind of just touch on some of those points for you. I think the biggest ones to keep in mind are we have to, which you've already done at the last meeting, which is to raise rates in such a manner that you are able to pay back. You're able to pay for the operation of the water treatment facility and all of the debt service, which includes 110% of the debt service due. They also have the ability to raise the rates if there is a lack of compliance with these terms. But we don't anticipate that based on what actions you've already taken to, head that off and make sure the debt service is properly paid. And I'm sorry, I know you guys have been through this already, so I don't know, but I haven't been here, so I'm not sure how much information you need or want from me, but do you have any questions about anything specifically?
Once the bonds are sold, are there restrictions with the loan agreement that there couldn't be any more forgiveness, anything like that after we close?
On the bonds themselves, not to my knowledge. There are certainly finance people who might know more than, who might contradict me on that point, but I think once the bonds are sold, the bonds that have been sold need to be paid back. But certainly there are grants and other opportunities out there that could come in later on if, there's always different opportunities within government for.
So it's basically not 100% restricted. There could be other opportunities down the road that could be applied to that repayment. And remind me, do we have a prepayment penalty on those bonds? It's a time frame, right?
Yes, there's annually there's 2 repayment dates every year. And I put that in my memo. I want to say it's May 1st, November 1st every year. So
okay.
Yeah, that's when the payments need to be made. But it'll be collected, and there will be a reserve fund and within the town of Silt's enterprise. I think we'd probably need, Austin from the Colorado Water Resources to, if there's any, it's my first water treatment plant, so I'm not sure about other opportunities, but I would imagine that, if there were other opportunities or grants that could come in, maybe it wouldn't be to pay back the bonds, but to help with other opportunities.
It wouldn't be, if I remember right. Once we sell the bonds, we owe that amount of money. And if we get grants and stuff after that, it's not gonna pay down the bond any. We can hold it in reserves and use it to pay on the bonds. But there's isn't there a certain time frame, Jeff, before we can actually pay off the bonds?
They're
Like 5
gonna-
years or something?
They'll be putting together their initial timetable was to put together the preliminary offering statement on October 6th. The last time we could make changes to that, the loan, the borrowing
29th.
is September 29th. So that's, so I think those deadlines have slipped a little bit because the bond, that they're looking at shopping the bonds not until
November.
right before right before Thanksgiving. So I think those dates have slipped a little bit. So there is I would say a very, very outside chance that if we get the Energy Impact Assistance Fund grant, for which we've applied for $1 million, there is a very slight chance that it could come in time to reduce the borrowing by $1 million. That is the only grant that we have applied for at this point that would impact that. So it's possible that could happen. I'm not offering you any hope on that, but we can still use the money in other ways for this project. The state has a rescission process that we might be able to afford it, but we haven't really gotten into that too much with the Power Development and Water Resources Authority, because it's just it's out there, you know, it's probably not likely. So we would use that for other things on the project. But it's you know, a possibility. I wouldn't count on that. I would just say what you have in front of you is what we're asking you to vote on tonight, and you know, if we're able to reduce that at some time in the future, you'll be the first to know. You know, we're gonna get a letter from, I forget the date we're gonna present in Avon is where they're gonna do the presentations sometime in late October, probably about a month from now, not even that long. But then on November 10th, we'll get a letter from the state telling us from DOLA, whether or not we're fortunate enough to get that grant. That may not marry up with the timeline that we're on with the loan.
I may have asked this, is there a prepayment penalty at any time down the road? Is there a certain time we have to keep these?
The bonds are the bonds. There is no prepayment of those.
Okay, I did.
That's my understanding.
The direct loan, there is an ability to prepay those, I believe. I think I just.
Jeff, if I may?
Please, Jim. That's Jim
Yeah,
Mann.
I was just, that's where I'm confused, I guess, between the bonds and the other ones, so I just.
Yeah, this is Jim Mann. The bonds have I guess, let me step back. The leverage loan, which is the one you're talking about this evening, it's not the direct loan. The leverage loan has a prepayment lock for the first 10 years, typically with the authority. So you can't prepay those bonds for 10 years.
Okay.
After that 10-year period, if you have excess funds, or you can refinance those bonds at a lower interest rate, you have the ability to do that.
Okay.
The direct loans, you have an ability to prepay on those at any time.
Okay. That was.
This is why we have Jim Mann on the phone.
That's where I was confused. I just wanted to make sure. I thought that's what it was, but I just wanted to make sure, so.
Where are you coming up with all this money to prepay the loan?
Never know. Jeff could win the lotto next week and, pay it off. No, I remember we talked about it, but I couldn't remember which one was what, so that answers my question.
Okay. So Jim, do we have any huge variances in rates to customers based off of the numbers that are in these documents?
The only variance that I would say is that the interest rate should be significantly less than what we're showing. We're showing a maximum interest rate at 4.5%. It should be well below 4%.
Okay.
Yeah, and that big a loan, 1/4% makes a big difference.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I think the idea was to have everything in the loan agreement be conservative. So
Yeah.
it's the most that you're going to see
Okay.
from the dollar amount of the loan to the interest rates to the repayment.
Okay.
All right. Any further questions or discussion? This is a public hearing, so.
No, answered my question.
Okay. No more discussion by the board, so the time is now 8:08 PM, and I will open up the public hearing for the first reading of ordinance number 6, series 2023. Persons desiring to make a public comment on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, did you have any emails or phone calls in regards to this agenda item?
No, I didn't, Mr. Mayor, and I also do not see any raised hands.
Okay. And we also have nobody from the public here in the chambers with us. So the time is now 8:09 PM, and I will close the public hearing and open up to further discussion by the board or a motion.
I just wanted to confirm, so those are with the stepped payments rate increase, right? So that was, or it still has to be approved for us to raise the rates in tiers.
So we did that at the last meeting. So November 1st will be the first rate increase, and then
So
January.
that is within the
1st. Yeah.
agreement and
Yep.
not the application of.
And then I'm sure these bonds have a step-up requirement built into them too, where we'll be required to raise the rates by a certain value. That's how our current bonds are set up. That's why we end up doing our 3% minimum every year, is because that's built into the bonds that we're required to do that.
So for a motion, are we approving this one with the red line then?
There should be a clean version of that as well that was passed around.
It's got
So-
some red line on the one we've got in front of
Yeah,
us.
so, yes, you'd be approving the new version that has been changed,
Yeah.
as evidenced by the red line.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the first reading ordinance 6, series 2023, as presented, handed to us with the red line version on it, I guess.
Just say the change from 21 to 23.
Yeah, that's the only.
Yes, with the change from 21 years of indebtedness to
23,
up
yep.
to 23 years.
Yeah.
The red line version, yeah, on front of us.
Section 3, subsection B and C, where those edits are,
Yeah.
just for the
The
record.
red line, yeah.
And I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion by trustee Seifert to approve the first reading of ordinance number 6, series 2023, as presented with the red line changes in section 3, subsection B and subsection C, changing the 21 years to 23 years in both of those sections. That motion was seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Hanrahan. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All's opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Just for the public that may be out there, we have one more reading of this, the second reading. So if you have any public comments to input onto this, you have one more chance to do so. All right. And then next up is administrator and staff comments.
Sorry, I'm washing paper here. From the lawyers. I don't think I have anything.
Okay.
Yes,
Director
I
Fauna?
do. Just to let you know, we're still working on the number on the water plant. I think we knocked off 150 to 200,000 more off that cost. Going through some of the plans, so that's still a work in progress. So hopefully that final number comes down a little bit more. October 2nd, I think, is Monday. We'll be shutting off the town-wide irrigation system and starting to winterize it for the year. So whatever Monday is, I believe it's the 2nd. And then also today today was the final for the engineering RFQ for the bike and pedestrian overpass. If any of you would like to be on the committee that selects the engineering firm, I have both. We only had 2 people submit RFQs, and I have a copy here if any of you would like to see that or read through it and be part of the committee that makes the selection.
Can we do that with our Parks Subcommittee? That'd be my suggestion. It already fits in kind of with those.
Yeah, that's fine.
I remember, I know.
I am.
Trustee Poston's on the Parks Committee, and then, Britnell?
Trustee Britnell.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we just let that committee do it if everyone's okay with that.
So it doesn't create an additional scheduled event, you just add it to the conversations you're already having?
What?
Going over the RFQs, just to
Going
have
over
that.
the RFQs just becomes an agenda item on that committee's meeting.
Well, we haven't had a meeting lately, but we would have to, because we are in the TAP grant, we would have to get these notified within a week or 2. So whether it's a meeting or not, or they just shoot emails saying which one they like, or whatever, because of the TAP grant timeline, we need to know in a couple weeks so I can stay on schedule with that.
Okay, who else is in the committee? It's myself, Britno, Jeff.
Jeff and Nicole and me.
Would you like to set up a quick meeting, like the
Well,
evening? And
you probably need to go
just take
through
this
these
and-
first before we have a meeting, because they're all books.
All books.
This is one, and this one is the other one.
I see.
So,
Just take some material today and send out an
Yes.
email and come up with a plan after that.
yes, I can give these to you today, and then when I see Justin, I'll get him too. But it was SEH Engineering and Roxol
Okay.
are the 2 that submitted.
And it was on my task list tonight to get with you, Andrea, and Justin, and
Schedule
nail
sometime.
down a meeting date.
Okay.
So we can probably do that after the meeting, and we'll set something up. Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Do you know the date that they're paving the overpass? Was it the 27th I saw on the sign?
That's what they're telling us.
Okay.
But it's been hit or miss on all of that because we didn't know they were gonna have it shut down part of today to do things. So if that's what the sign says, we're gonna go with it.
I think we thought tomorrow night and Wednesday night. We heard and
I heard.
put that out in the newsletter.
Yeah, I thought the sign I saw today was the 27th for us and the 28th for Rifle.
Yep. That's what somebody else told me too, that one of their message boards said that, so.
So maybe by the end of the week, we'll have it paved over.
Yes.
Those dates do seem to be flexible.
Flexible.
Well, they've got it prepared. It's,
Yeah.
I hope they take some of them bumps out.
Yeah.
Pave the bumps over.
No, why they didn't grind them down as they went. But
They're on joints. They probably could have grinded a little more than
yeah,
they
they
did.
could have,
but
at least the one where it
but
meets
they're on
down at the bottom there, man.
joints that are actually metal that will tear up one of them
Right,
grinding
but-
machines pretty hard.
Well, maybe they'll smooth it out.
Yeah.
Any questions on my report? I guess I'd like to just call your attention to the town staff. We're going to toss some horseshoes on Wednesday afternoon from 4 to 6. So if you would care to join us, staff would like to have you around. So feel free to join us up at the new horseshoe pits at the park.
Okay.
I'd like to hear some detail on the tour of the town with Trustee Clausen.
What, other than what's in the report? I think Jeff summed it up real well.
Which parts of the
I'm-
town did you go through?
Well, I'm looking
We
for.
we were all over. We went, well, pretty much everywhere.
30 minutes?
Yeah, we pretty
I
much
think the
hit.
things that we especially noted were in the business park, there's some trees that are right up on the road, and so we're
In the road.
We want to go back and look at that and make sure they're not
Back
gonna.
end, back there, oh man,
Yeah.
them grew up.
Elm trees.
Elm trees grew
Yeah.
great
Yeah,
this
a
year.
lot of them are wild.
Better
Yeah.
or worse?
Yeah.
Some of that
Some
was-
of them weren't elm trees, they just need to take the canopy up 10, 11 foot, and they'll be nice looking trees.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, a lot of it was code enforcement, and a lot of it is, well, I should say a lot of it's code enforcement. Some of it's town maintenance, and some of it is a gray area. Is it a code enforcement thing? Is it a town thing? But I guess the biggest thing was the elm trees and the weeds and stuff, because over time, all they're going to do is destroy the curb, gutter, and sidewalk in the street. So, but then it's kind of that gray area of, okay, technically it's the property owner's responsibility to take care of that right of way, but if they're not going to do anything, obviously it's code enforcement, but if they're not going to do anything, it's going to ruin the town street anyway. So when does town staff have to step in and take care of it just to protect the street? So there's a lot of gray area that I feel anyway.
And we
There's a lot
built
of
that,
gray
there was
area.
hardly any trees in there, most of it's just, some of it's wild and just, there was a few trees in some of those, but most of them, we didn't have any trees in there when we built that.
Yeah. But it was a good tour because, and that's what I wanted. I wanted it to be just, we're in the truck having a conversation. I didn't want it to be a finger pointing thing. I just wanted to bring awareness to a few things that I see walking around town. And, when you walk around, you do get a different perspective of certain things than if you're just driving around.
Right by, yeah.
So anyway, that's
Nice.
pretty much the gist of it.
Okay. Okay. And the environmentally friendly fueling station is moving along, it sounds like?
It is. Well, you've probably seen the goats.
In the goats, yeah.
They're working over there, and we haven't seen any submittals yet on those processes that are coming up, but we're told that they're in the works. And I think they have until the first week of February to show that progress.
Okay.
And I meant to put that in this report.
You did. It's in there. It's in the first paragraph. Town has an option to purchase the property back if they do not
Ah,
pull permits and pay
there
town
it
fees
is.
by February.
February.
You did put it in there.
February.
Yeah.
Better than I thought it was.
So just a citizen question on the side of that. Can a citizen in a neighborhood on an undeveloped lot bring in goats to weed it for them?
As long as they come in and get a permit.
There's a permit.
So it's a permit to bring
Yes.
goats in to
Yeah,
graze?
yeah.
Okay.
And there's a time limit on them, and it's for weed abatement and not, I want to raise goats on this piece of
On this
property.
piece of property, right, yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking in some of the upper neighborhoods where the lots are just growing over, I had a citizen ask if they could bring goats in to eat their lot, so. So if they come in, get a permit, you can bring in goats for a specific period of time.
Yes.
For eating weeds only.
And we also, you have to look at non-electrified fences, because there is a town code about electric fences.
Okay.
So you got to make sure whatever kind of fence you put up is going to hold the goats back. that's not electrified.
And not shock the children. Okay.
Yes.
Or the goats.
Or the goats.
Well,
Mostly the children.
Mostly the children, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Because like the fence that's up over there, the goats have been in it enough that they know, they don't even test it. They know it's gonna shock them if they get close to it.
And then are we looking good on getting a permit from the railroad to cross their line with the broadband?
With the broadband, I don't know. With my boring project for a new water line, yes.
Okay,
I got an email the other day that the permit will be issued for that.
okay,
And that went out to bid Friday.
all right.
So maybe slide the broadband conduit in there along with it?
No, they didn't approve that.
If they don't give us a permit to cross their line, can we hang it off of the broadband off the bridge and still get it
We're
across?
trying to hang it off the bridge, but we still have to get an aerial easement from the railroad.
Okay.
That's where it's supposed to go is
Is-
off the,
So we're not trying to bore under again, we're trying to go over.
yep.
Okay. All right. Any other staff comments? Okay, then we'll do updates from the board comments. Trustee Poston?
No comments today, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Trustee Clausen?
I just have a couple. Earlier in the work session, we were talking about parking in streets and everything. And I know up in Eagles View, South Golden is a one-way. Is there any talk of making North Golden the one-way? Because it's just as packed or worse than South Golden would be.
We have had that conversations. Jeff, Chief, and I have talked about it, and I believe Chief has talked to the HOA also about it.
Uh-huh.
We haven't done nothing yet, but it is being discussed.
Yeah, I just didn't know if that was a thought or something, just because, yeah, the congestion
Yes.
on that road is bad.
Pretty bad.
So, and
I
then.
mean, just the amount of cars that are parked on the street
Yes.
causes that?
And North Golden is just as narrow as South Golden. So I was just, and then years ago, South Golden was made a one-way just because of all of the traffic parked on the street.
And then only parking on one side of the street.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And it's still kind of a tight street,
still.
South Golden, to get through.
and yeah. And it's one of those things, like the public works guys, when they're plowing, yeah, you can maybe get one pass. Maybe, if you really angle the blade in a few areas. So, just to try to make it easier for them too. So,
One of the things we've talked about is it becomes a little bit of be careful what you wish for, because if you create wider streets, then people drive faster. And then we have complaints about
Yeah.
speeding. So those cars parked the way they do is kind of like traffic calming.
that's true. It does slow the traffic down, for sure.
Not always.
And we
Not
don't
all,
have-
yeah, not always. Yeah, not always. I mean, they'll,
But
yeah, there's,
speed bumps don't work.
Don't work either, so
always
yeah.
either,
well, that's
so.
true.
There's some people that just can't read a speed limit sign, so.
Yeah. And, I guess another thing, the public comment about the 16th and Orchard, the four-way stop. Has there been any talk about making that a four-way stop? Just because, they are right with the kids and the speeders flying up and down. And yeah, that drain pan doesn't do a whole lot for a lot of speeders. They'll just fly through there, but, making that a four-way stop might help
We
to
have
slow the
not
traffic
had
down.
that discussion on that street.
So that was the other one. And I noticed there's a lot of crosswalks in town that could use to be repainted. I don't know if that is on the agenda or if it could be. And
It is, we have some that's gonna be painted here in the next week or so. And then by an outside entity as they stripe some lines for us.
Oh, okay.
And then Public Works will probably go back and try to redo some of them on the other streets that
Okay.
don't get painted.
And then that goes along with on Main Street here. Are there any plans to add some more? Because I know we have the one on 7th, but it would,
Well,
would be
right
nice.
now, in order to get a crosswalk on Main Street, we have to do a traffic study and we have to do a pedestrian count and turn all those numbers into CDOT and get approval from CDOT to put a crosswalk in.
Gotcha.
Currently, I have traffic counts at the post office, Lyons Boulevard, and at 7th Street, so we can get crosswalks put in there and get like signals on 7th Street that'll flash. And then in Lyons, over by that area, we'll have to build a refuge because that is so wide. So we'll have to put an island in with a refuge so you have a place to stop before you continue on against traffic. All we need now is the people counts, and then I can submit all that paperwork to CDOT.
Oh, okay. And yeah, that another reason for thinking of that is because of the speeders. I mean, they go so fast down Main Street.
Yes.
You know, my thought was, get some more crosswalks.
78 miles per hour
to slow
was the
them
high
down.
score on my
Really?
traffic counter.
Wow. But
And that was at 7th and Main.
yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously to protect pedestrians and make it safer for pedestrians, but to try to slow
Yeah.
down the speeders.
Because, and another interesting fact is 6,000 cars a day past 7th Street and Grand. That was about our average.
Wow, that's yeah.
And it
that's
was
a lot.
about 4,000 a day out at Lyons and Highway 6.
Oh wow.
And the board had asked us to come back to talk about the whole traffic and speeding issue, and we've had some preliminary conversations with Derek Walter, our town engineer, about, we need to get together as a staff and kind of put a presentation together for you and kind of let you know what we're seeing out there and just have a dialogue and let you know what we think we can do to solve some of these issues. So we are not only working on things as we go, we're also looking at the longer term issue as well.
Yeah, I'm not saying you guys aren't doing it,
No,
but I'm just saying,
yeah.
Everybody on the board's made a comment about speeders and traffic, and it's just, just trying to keep the conversation going,
Yep.
Can we add that as an agenda item for our next meeting?
I don't know.
We actually already do have it tentatively scheduled for the October 10th meeting to talk about some traffic calming and
She read
such.
my mind.
Nice.
Can we?
I don't know if I don't know if we'll be ready to present by then anything, but we're happy to just talk about it if you'd like.
Well, one of the things that I had asked for previously was the legality of raising speeding fines. I'm paraphrasing, but someone mentioned one of the last times we discussed it, that the fines aren't acting as a deterrent. It was, quote, the cost of doing business, unquote, for these drivers. And now 78 miles an hour. Why can we increase the fines? And if so, what's a good number? We need a deterrent. We keep bringing it up. No one's changing their behavior. I don't think asking isn't getting it done. So what's our plan B? Plan B is jack up the fines and make it fiscally painful enough that people slow down.
It's not like we advertise that, hey, we're gonna charge you this super high fee if you.
But the word will get out.
Yeah, the first
right?
person that gets pulled over and they get a $600 ticket
They're
for
gonna-
doing
they're
30
gonna
or
tell their
25,
10
they're gonna
friends.
tell
Maybe
the
we
neighbor.
should put it on the 9th Street sign, $600 fines for speeding.
And it would be noticed publicly, hey, maybe in the newsletter, FYI, the cost of doing business just went up times 10. Again, all our requests and our pleading to slow down and painting the lines, all those are well-intentioned, but do we think they're gonna be effective? Substantially effective? I think jacking up the speeding fines will be substantially effective.
How do you feel about photo radar?
I think it's more expensive to implement and manage than simply jacking up the fines.
Than
It's a
having police
solution.
officers stopping cars?
Photo radar would be, that's work effective in a lot of
I don't know how expensive photo
It's worth a
radar
cost
is,
analysis for sure.
But
Who's gonna manage that stuff, in the winter if it,
But you
Well,
still
you-
got, if your cops are gonna be out there giving a ticket, what's the difference?
Yeah.
It's gonna be just as cheap to do the photo radar and have your cops out
Yes,
there.
yeah, because you're paying the officers
Again,
to be
I
out
don't know the
I don't know the
cost.
cost.
That's why it would be helpful to have that analysis.
No, that's
Right.
that's a good
That's
idea.
what I won't be ready for on October
October
10th.
10th. And whether a photo radar ticket holds up in court as well as a officer written ticket.
How about the 11th?
Or you have an officer out there with one of those old school radar guns
The
where
old
you have
school
to stand
Smokey and the
outside of the
Bandit.
car and
Yeah.
point it up. Yeah. I don't know. But my only other question was, I mean, obviously we're moving forward on the water plant, and I just feel that the citizens, you know, can't afford both, so we need to do what we can on to, yeah, not have to rebuild the sewer plant. So my question is, any word on that waiver?
No.
Nothing yet.
In fact, we haven't done a whole lot of work on that other than bring it to the attention of a couple of well-placed individuals who may have some influence on that. But we haven't really started to lobby that. I mean, we're busy every day on the water plant, you know, crossing i's and dotting t's. So what I've said all along is that as soon as we put this to bed, which tonight was a big step, then we can go to, it's not like we can't walk and chew gum at the same time, but we can't maybe skip rope and chew gum at the same, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not a very good analogy, but, you know, we are a small staff and we will get that done. There's some other options as well, so we'll keep moving that forward for sure.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
I'm done.
Trustee Seifert,
Nothing for me.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Just briefly, wanted to let everyone know that back in June, I was invited to participate with a group called the Hearst Leadership Forum. It's run by the Aspen Institute. It's an 8-week set of meetings, a couple of all-day sessions, a number of virtual sessions. It's local elected officials, some other government, regional, I think county and state level elected representatives, as well as some local nonprofits, healthcare, finance, and other industries. They all get together. I was invited and accepted it back in June. They waived my fee to participate because I'm an elected official, so wanted to notice everyone of that. It starts this Friday and it ends, I think, the middle of November. And I also wanted to express my gratitude to the Aspen Institute for allowing me to attend. That's it.
Director Fauner heard that they may be redoing the IMTPR regions.
Yes, that meeting is actually October 4th, and it's a new legislation bill that put this into effect. We're not for sure if that's going to affect us or not, if we're going to get moved to a different TPR, if we're going to stay in the one we're at. Currently, the one we are in is Garfield County, Pitkin County, Eagle, Summit, and Lake County. So we go basically from Silverthorne to Parachute up to Aspen and up Highway 13 till you hit the Rio Blanco line is our TPR that we are in at the moment.
I
So
haven't mentioned, nobody knows what may be going on.
nobody knows 100% sure how this is going to fall.
Okay.
And that meeting October 4th in Eagle with the IMTPR, we should have more information and be able to understand what they're trying to do and if they're going to rearrange our TPR or not.
Or not? Okay. All right. I've got nothing else. So, since we're not doing bad on time, I guess we will go ahead and do an executive session if everyone
Sure.
on board with that. Okay. Grab my how-to book here.
Vital.
Yes.
I might as well do it and talk about both.
All right.
That first and second. Want to talk about that?
I will make a motion that we move into an executive session
Start talking to me about my
for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators
I'm kidding.
under CRS Section 24-6-4024E in regards to Dewberry and Garney, and for a discussion of a personnel matter under CRS Section 24-6-4024F, the Town Administrator Jeff Lehman's performance evaluation. Anyone like to second that motion?
Second.
Motion by myself, the mayor, to enter an executive session for the stated purposes, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Hanrahan. All is in favor?
Aye.
All is opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We will go ahead and take a 5-minute recess while we get the executive session set up. Get unmuted, we'll return to the regular meeting. All right, can you hear us, Sheila?
Yes, I can.
All right. The time is now 9:48 p.m. and the executive session has concluded. No formal action was taken in the executive session. The participants in the executive session were the town attorney, our town clerk, and public works director all left the meeting after the discussion in regards to CRS Section 24-6-424E, the Dewberry and Garney contract. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of open meetings law, I'd ask that you state your concerns for the record. Seeing none, the next item on the agenda is adjournment.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by trustee Seifert to adjourn the meeting, seconded by trustee Clausen. All is in favor?
Aye.
All is opposed? Motion carries unanimously.